Hi, welcome to our Catholic Prison Ministry Coalition webinar today. Our topic is Best Catechetical Materials for Jail and Prison Ministry. We've got three very experienced panelists today who can share with us their materials that I think you'll find very helpful in your particular ministry. We have Tyler Curtis, who is the Executive Director of Dismas Ministries. They are the best, in my opinion, source of Catholic resources for prisoners and chaplains. And I don't say that because I was formerly the president of the board. I say it because I've used their materials over the years. And it's just really great, great service to the church and to those who are incarcerated and chaplains. We also have Lulu Santana, who is the Catholic chaplain at Ventura Youth Correctional Facility here in California, and Larry Lutz, who is the Catholic chaplain at the Ohio State Penitentiary, Maximum Security Prison for Men at Youngstown, Ohio. So welcome to our panelists and welcome to all of our participants today.
Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm happy to be joining you today and representing Dismas Ministry, of course. For those of you who are unfamiliar with our work, Dismas Ministry is a national Catholic outreach to the imprisoned. We provide free Catholic Bibles, prayer books, rosaries, and study courses to prisoners, as well as to the chaplains and the volunteers who minister to them. This year, we are celebrating 20 years of service to our brothers and sisters behind bars. Despite these challenging times that we're all experiencing, our mission continues, thanks in large part to our generous benefactors and friends. As a publications and mailing ministry, we do not provide in-person ministry to the imprisoned. We do provide Catholic resources, including our 4 Catholic study courses, which were written and developed for the incarcerated. All study courses have been well received and effective for prisoners who want to deepen their understanding and knowledge of the Catholic faith. Upon completion of each study course part, a certificate is issued to each participant. Our first study course I want to speak about is the Faith Study, A Reason for Hope. This study covers the Creed, Sacraments, and Morality. This course was developed with input from prisoners who were allowed to review the text as it was being created. Reflection pages include topics of specific interest to prisoners, such as abuse, good and evil, and rejecting evil. In several dioceses throughout the United States, A Reason for Hope has been approved for use in RCIA programs in prisons. The next study course I want to speak about is our Bible study, God with Us. This study provides a comprehensive understanding of the Bible by covering the entire Old and New Testaments, the historic background, the themes, selective readings, as well as reflection pages specific to the prisoner's experiences of anger, bullying, addiction, resolving conflict, and forgiveness. Our next study course is the prayer study called Pray Always. This study focuses on the vast treasury of Catholic prayer tradition. In this study, the participant learns about how the Mass came to be, what is meant by Liturgy of the Hours, or Benedictine, Franciscan, or Carmelite spirituality. This course includes stories of women and men who are examples of prayer in the Old Testament, New Testament, and in the Catholic tradition. Our fourth study course is called The Web of Life. This course focuses on Catholic social teaching and restorative justice. This study includes an exploration of the biblical roots of justice, an explanation of the 7 themes of the social teachings of the Catholic Church, starting with the dignity of the human person, and a final section provides an overview of restorative justice. Each section includes both women and men who are models of social justice. The section of restorative justice opens their eyes to the central role of the victim and how there is no victimless crime, as well as the need for repair of the harm done by crime. These study courses and all of our materials are available in both English and Spanish, and all of our materials are available for purchase through our online store at dismasministry.org. Or if chaplains and volunteers do not have a budget for these items, all you have to do is complete the contact form on our website, and we will send these materials to you at no cost. Both Larry and Lulu provide direct in-person ministry, and they also run RCIA programming in both of their positions. They each serve different populations and in different areas of the country. So I'm very happy that both of them are here with us today so that they may share their insights and best practices and resources for those who are going through this spiritual journey in prison, behind bars, and or their path to conversion to the Catholic faith. Lulu will share her insights from her experience in working with youth, teenagers, and young adults. Lulu, thank you for being with us today.
My pleasure. For my comments today, I want to frame them within the actual ritual text of the RCIA, the Rite of Christian Initiation of Adults. And from my experience, I'll be kind of gleaning from my time volunteering at an adult county jail with men, and also here in a youth correctional facility. And so when we think about RCIA, kind of looking at different programs, different processes, different materials, and I think that the actual ritual text can provide us both a sense of guidance, some hints, and perhaps some more freedom in how we accompany those through the sacraments. And so I'm going to highlight just a few texts of instructions that, again, I hope can provide some guidance when it comes to catechesis of those seeking the sacraments. Kind of in the beginning of the ritual text, we're told that the nature of catechesis is to be adapted to the liturgical signs and the cycle of the church's year, suited to the needs of the catechumens and enriched by local traditions. What does this mean for us in a correctional setting? I think first and foremost that it's always helpful to have someone begin to feel the sense of our liturgical tradition, the symbols, the rituals, the readings. And so being able to have resources that expose and bring a person into that rhythm of the seasons, and knowing that that rhythm of the seasons of our liturgical year really is the rhythm of the life of Christ. And so that's really kind of the goal there, to be able to be accompanied into that life with Christ. And so I'll mention different resources that can help provide that access and that kind of rhythm of the liturgical year, suited to the needs of the catechumens or to whoever the person is. I think that's really important in any setting, and certainly within a correctional setting. What are the particular needs? What is the circumstances that person? Are they in a juvenile facility? Are they in a county facility? Are they already in a state or federal prison? Minimum security, maximum security? What kind of services are allowed? Do they have access to a group study or service, or are they in solitary? And so those are various needs that need to be kind of taken into consideration, as well as what are the literacy levels? What are the opportunities for them to access materials in a way that is not going to be frustrating, but actually going to be accessible and be able to meet them where they're at. Enriched by local traditions, in a correctional setting, it's not just recognizing that, yes, there is particular security, ebbs and flows to their situation, but it's also recognizing cultural traditions of the people and the community, and being able to bring those into the catechesis, being able to also recognize what is the greater local community. Is there opportunity for local churches, volunteers to have access. I know right now with COVID-19, that's all been put on pause in most places. But what is the interaction with the local community and being able to bring some of those traditions into access, into encounter with those that are incarcerated? The ritual also guides us as to what a catechist listens for when it comes to accompanying those preparing for sacraments. And first and foremost, is there a sense of conversion? And when we talk about conversion, it isn't just that flipping a switch from not being Catholic to being Catholic, but it's that relationship with God and Christ. What are some of those signs? And so this really involves some listening. How does that person kind of feel that sense of being called to God and Christ? Sense of repentance, the first stirrings of repentance. How do they look at this relationship with God as one that speaks to their own sense of conversion and repentance and seeking forgiveness? The calling upon God in prayer, not only learning the formulas of different prayers, but again, that sense of relationship with God. I remember a young man talking about wanting to become Catholic and wanting to be baptized. And as I kind of probed a little bit, his interest, his desire, that hunger, and I remember asking him, when do you remember kind of thinking about God? And he got quiet as he kind of recalled back to an experience. He says, I've never really talked about this, but he remembered as a young child being in a situation where there was a family crisis. And he said he went to his room and he started talking to God, asking God to help. And as he spoke about this, he actually became emotional and was fighting back the tears. And to me, that was like bingo. There's been a long journey already in relationship with God, where he's already been calling to God in prayer. And so that became a key moment that I would refer back to during this journey towards baptism. The other thing that we're listening for is their sense of church or community, their sense of being able to be in the company and spirit of Christians. Again, they are not necessarily in circumstances where they're going to be, getting together for coffee and donuts after church. Again, none of us are doing that these days. But there are ways in which there's an opportunity perhaps to connect with people, be it there in the facility, again, the chaplain, the ministers, the volunteers, but also in their correspondence. I remember there's been a number of young people and men who have taken the opportunity to write to people that they knew who maybe were Catholic and maybe they wanted them to be kind of support during their journey. And so that kind of bridge, being able to connect with someone and have them share about their own faith. Again, there was a man who reached out to his grandfather telling him how he was going to be baptized. And, I would ask his grandfather about his experience, what he remembered about his first communion or his confirmation. And that provided, again, a sense of support and encouragement. And again, as the ritual invites us to, the sense of spirit of the company of the spirit of Christians. When it comes to content of what is it that we are wanting a person to immerse themselves in the preparation and the celebration of the sacraments, the ritual text says, there's basically 4 things. And it's really about how are we preparing someone for a Christian way of life. So it's certainly there's a study of and there's information, but even more so it's about how is this being experienced? How is the Christian way of life being lived? And those 4 pillars I just summarized in these 4 words is the Word of God. How are they opportunities for them to interact with the Word of God, whether it's their own Bible study, again, the liturgical year, and so the lectionary readings on the daily basis or weekly basis, the Sunday readings. What about community? How are they experiencing their faith in their interactions, whether is it with fellow prisoners, with staff, with the volunteers, again, their correspondence with people outside. What are the shifts that are happening in their relationships? Their experience of liturgy and prayer. Again, this may be in an all-purpose room where, 1 minute people are getting their hair done and getting it cut, or playing a poker game, and then the next minute it's being cleared to set up for a church service. Whatever that circumstance may be, how are they able to have access to opportunities for prayer? And again, it may be in their solitary cell, but opportunities for prayer that continue to enliven their faith. And the other aspect is witness. How is their faith being put into practice in a way that surface the elements of justice that our faith calls us to? In my interactions with people in this process, whether it's been in the county jail or here, I often will say, it's not a matter of waiting till you get out, for those that are going to get out, to be able to practice one's faith. There really are plenty of opportunities and experiences where in the daily life, one puts their faith into practice. And so being able to listen for how a person is doing so, and I would say a catechist in this circumstance isn't so much going to tell a person how they're going to live, but it's really listening for and echoing back, reflecting back to a person how their faith is actually being lived out in perhaps some very ordinary way. I remember a man telling me how he had shared some bread with someone who he knew didn't have extra canteen or commissary, and knowing that he would get hungry by the end of the day. And so I reflected that back in terms of it being a way in which he was sharing with someone in need. And so there are many ways where that can be put into practice. If we think back to those study guides that Tyler talked about, I think that they all kind of connect to these pillars. And so that's why those Dismas materials really are very good at sustaining this journey towards initiation and towards a Catholic way of life. So there are some resources, additional resources that can help, especially when it comes to being exposed to that rhythm of the church year and the life of Christ. Some are free, some are maybe already known, and others might be a little bit off the beaten path. One of them, The Word Among Us, which also has a Spanish edition. They have a special inmate edition, and there's a reflection for the daily readings with listed, the pericopes of the scriptures for the day and some other reflections. The edition for the special inmate edition does have reflections and readings that are kind of geared towards the population. So that's one that is available for free to chaplains. Give Us This Day also has a kind of prisoner program where they receive donations to be able to donate subscriptions to correctional facilities. And again, this has the daily readings, morning and evening prayer. For some who really kind of want to kind of experience that sense of prayer, this is a great resource. And I found when I was volunteering at the county jail that this was always kind of anticipated when they would get their next monthly edition of Give Us This Day. Magnificat is another one of those resources that people might be familiar with. I'm not aware of programs that they have to donate, but it's also an opportunity, could be an opportunity for parishes in the area that are close to facilities to provide sponsorship or donations of subscriptions where they're maybe don't have some access to these publications. Jesuit Restorative Justice Initiative, which has been highlighted at other times during the webinars, provides a weekly liturgy guide. And again, this is geared towards people who are incarcerated and very well received. Includes a reflection from someone who is incarcerated, the Sunday readings, a meditation, a question for reflection. So again, it really helps the user be able to not only read and become acquainted with the readings throughout the liturgical year, but be able to connect to their own life experience. At Home with the Word, this is Liturgy Training Publications, has the Sunday readings, and the Sunday readings along with a commentary and some questions. I've used this with a few people where it seemed like their kind of interest, their questions kind of met up with this resource. And I remember a young man telling me he really liked the way this broke it down for him in terms of some of the points of the scriptures. So again, just another potential resource. In addition to the study guides from Dismas, I offer the Ligori Publications offers a Journey of Faith, Jornada de Fe, so it's both in English and Spanish. And these are very simple kind of leaflets that are organized by kind of the different stages of formation in RCIA. And they have both adult, teen, and children. I've interchanged them. I haven't necessarily given like a full packet to someone, but kind of mixed here and there depending upon need, depending upon the particular kind of circumstance. But again, given the fact that they have different reading levels, they can be interchangeable and provide some flexibility for different literacy levels and access. So that's also a potential. I think it's very clear that RCIA in a correctional setting is not what we experience in a parish setting. But that's not to say that the fullness of what the actual ritual is about and calls for doesn't happen in a correctional setting. In fact, in my experience, having worked in both parish, university settings and in correctional settings when it comes to RCIA, there's actually a fullness that is actually possible more so in a correctional setting because there's a different kind of freedom, I think, when individuals are seeking the sacraments. And so Team RCIA isn't specific for RCIA in correctional settings, and it doesn't provide, I would say, catechetical materials. Rather, it provides both that guidance and those hints and those clues and reminders to the principles of the RCIA, and I think could be helpful for any ministers, catechists who are seeking to become familiar with, okay, what am I adapting from to be able to understand the RCIA ritual. They have blogs where people can kind of share questions and experiences. A couple years ago, I wrote a blog for RCIA within correctional settings, and there were responses from across the country, and I got connected to chaplains even in Australia when it came to the adaptations that RCIA would call for in a correctional setting. So again, these are all just kind of some markers from the RCIA text and some resources to be able to provide some guidance for our catechesis in a correctional setting.
Thank you, Lulu, for being with us today and for sharing these excellent resources. Now we will hear a little bit about Larry's ministry experience. Larry, thank you for being with us today as well.
Thank you.
Larry, in your ministry experience, what is preferable for prisoners to go about RCIA through individual study or through classes?
Well, I can only speak on my own situation, which I'm in a supermax security prison, in which they're 23 hours a day alone in their cell. And the class is a preferable one for them, and also I think for just for the content of what we're doing, because it gives them a chance to hear the other ideas and so forth, and also for me to see areas that I may be skipping or something or passing over something. The classes work better. I've only had a couple that wanted to just work alone in their cell on it, and that was fine. But eventually they came to want to be in the class then too. So I think, you know, for this situation, the class is preferable because they do learn more.
Because so many incarcerated individuals do not have high school diplomas, materials should be at what reading level?
Normally, I would say at a 5th grade reading level. That is normally the reading level that most newspapers publish at. And but you will find some people that they're at a lower reading level than that. And you can check with the diocese to find other materials that might speak to their level, or also check with your own resources in the prison, like the GED teachers, and they might have something.
What would be the topics, or what should be, I should say, the topics in an RCIA program?
I follow basically the 3 topics that that Dismas Ministry has in their 3 books on Reason for Hope: the Sacraments, the Apostles' Creed, and Christian morality, or the 10 Commandments. This kind of covers all of the basic areas that you need to cover in RCIA. And be a little bit flexible to deal with some of the subtopics that might also be coming up, questions that they might ask. Many are also looking, because they're changing their religion. They're going into either they're coming from families that have no religion, or a different religion. It's not Catholic. And so they're wanting to know, well, what's the difference? And so I find some materials for them that compare the different Christian religions, as well as how do we differ from the Jewish, or very popular with them also is what's making us different from the Muslim religion. And so adding some other topics might help also, and any other kind of DVDs or something that you can show they like that, rather than just hearing me all the time. So,
how should RCIA students demonstrate their interest and understanding of the step they're about to undertake?
I look mainly by their participation in the class. You know, whether they're with you when you're on a topic, or they're just somehow giving you something that you know they weren't following at all. Also, the amount of preparation when they come in and they've got their class prepared, what we're going to be doing. They've got the little quizzes that are in Dismas Ministry at the end of each section. There's a short quiz, and so we go over that, and many times they come in, they've already got the answers, they've already looked that up. So I go by that as well. And also, if possible, any individual sessions you have with one of the students, it's what, you know, in my prison, it's very difficult to do an individual session, because you have to go through hoops and so forth to get all the permissions and the things set up and so forth. To do an individual session, but those are very beneficial. I found when I can do those, it is very, very helpful.
What criteria should we use when choosing materials for RCIA?
First, check with the diocese and see what do they have any requirements, and how rigidly do they follow those requirements, or is there some leeway that they give you to do some things? Because in the prison setting, you can't go with the way that it is always done in other places. You have, you know, they got the constraints done by the security. Also, the Dismas Ministry is written specifically for those incarcerated, so it seems to speak specifically to where they are, and they've responded much better to the Dismas Ministry than other materials that I've used.
How does the RCIA program in prisons compare to what is being offered to participants at their local parishes?
In terms of the content, there's not a whole lot of difference. It's pretty much the same. But in terms of the other materials, activities especially, in the prison, you're just not free to do the activities that parishes can do. And so you don't have those. But then you also, what is the schedule of the prison, the protocols, the physical structure, and also a difference in prisons. low security prisons, there's a lot easier to imitate some of the rituals that are used in local parishes, whereas in a high security prison, the regulations just prevent you from doing anything. Also, for when you schedule the sacraments, then you need to also take into account the availability of priests. Do you have priests available that can come and that are willing to come? We're very fortunate in ours. We've got 4 blocks in the prison, and we've got 4 priests that come once a month to say masses, hear confessions, and when we have for baptisms and confirmations and so forth. And also we've had, our bishop just passed away, but he liked coming to the prison for any of those events, for confirmations and baptisms and so forth.
Do others inside the prison community, such as guards and staff, are they helpful in supporting this type of program?
This also varies, and according to the level, the leadership of the prison, the administrative leadership sets the tone. And so if they're very supportive of your program, it goes on down to the other levels. Also, what is important is the employed chaplains of the prison, what their policies are and protocols and so forth. And then the security, the head of the officers, how they see things and what directions they give to the other officers. And then there's also the individual officers. Our ministry is not really just to the prisoners. There's also a lot of opportunities that come up where I end up doing some ministry also with the officers and maybe some other staffs. In our area, which is a very Catholic area, many of the officers report to me that they were altar boys when they were young. And so they're very supportive of this. And they've also given us some feedback, the wardens and the officers, that they've seen a difference in the guys that attend our classes. There was one man, 36-year-old man, that after he had gone through the RCIA and been baptized and so forth, and about a month later, he said, an officer shook my hand. He said, for years, I've not had anyone shake my hand. And he says, and he told me, you have made some great changes. I really like to see what you have become since you've been going to these classes. And so he was very happy to hear that. So was I. And to see, especially, that it does make a difference and it translates into their behavior.
How long does it typically take for prisoners to complete the program?
In our program, it's about 3 months, because the prisoners that are with us, they're there because of their behavior in other prisons. And so they don't stay as long as they will in some other prisons. Because as soon as their behavior is good enough that their security level drops, they get transferred to another prison, or in some cases, some of them are just paroled out. And so we try to do it 3 months, hoping that we can get them to the point of baptism by that point. Occasionally, that isn't long, and it's not. It happened. They get transferred out too soon, and we miss them. So, also important is when they're transferring to another prison, to connect with the Catholic ministers in that prison, to let them know that they've got this prisoner coming that has gone through RCIA with you, and so he can continue. There's one prison that many of ours go to. They don't like going there because they say there's no Catholic presence. It's a prison that it's in the southern part of the state, it's very isolated there. I don't think there's even a Catholic church in that county. And so they don't have anybody coming there. Maybe the priest comes to say mass once or twice a year, and that's the extent of it. And so many of them are afraid, what will happen to my faith when I go there?
Are there some faith activities that are available for them to engage in before, during, and after they complete the program?
I like this question because it gives me an idea of something that I can implement when I get permitted to go back into there after this COVID thing is over, that we can go back into the prisons. We've been kept out since March. But I can have them, and I think they would appreciate and enjoy the planning for the masses, planning the any religious services that we have there. And I think that it's a good idea because it's not just an academic exercise for them. It's faith is something that should be alive and growing and vibrant. And so it also gives them a chance to get some ideas for if they're going to get out and go back, then what they can do in a parish, and what they can get some confidence about some areas of activities that they can do and participate in, I think it's just a good idea.
How involved are family members, spouses, and friends in this process or at the time of completion?
I think that this varies also with the prison, the policies of the prison, and also with the individual himself. The last time we had baptisms was the first time that we were allowed to have families come, and but we didn't have any families come because none of the guys wanted their families to come. One of them told me, "You're the only family I've got." And so it was a sad story. He was only 20 years old. And but many of them are coming from really a bad situation that was kind of partly responsible for the behavior that got them there. But we have the opportunity to do something for them that they might not have had. And we make connections with them of people that they never had this kind of caring before. And so we're in a good position to do something here. And this is a good program to do this. And I really enjoy the work.
Larry, can you share a story of someone that you guided through the RCIA program?
There is one, I will call him Ricky. I was teaching the RCIA class, and one of the guys in the class told me that there was a guy in the cell next to him that he was sharing what he was doing and learning in this class, and they were talking back and forth, and the guy said, I would like to be in the class. And so I went to his cell and I met him and found out he was interested and he wanted to do this. And he had an interesting background that I thought was better than most. He had grown up in a family that really didn't have any specific religion, but they wanted him to have a good education. So they sent him to Catholic schools. And so he went through Catholic grade school, and then he got a scholarship because he was very tall. He got a scholarship to a Catholic high school. It was a basketball scholarship, and he was also a fairly good student. But towards his 12th grade, he started to hang with some different people, and he smoked marijuana and so forth, and he dropped out of school. He got a girlfriend, and they had a child, and then the relationship fell apart. And later he was, she called him and told him that she's got a new boyfriend, and there's a good relationship between the boyfriend and his daughter, and he felt it was really being taunted. It got him very angry. He went over there and broke into her house And so she called the police, and he received 3 years because he also had a gun, although he did not show it to her or anything. He just had it with him, but that was enough to get a 3-year sentence. And so he was very happy to be in RCIA. He was very motivated. He showed up at all the classes. He was very prepared. He participated. And after he was baptized on the very next week, when I was going around to give communion, he jumped up and came to the door and he said, "Yes, I want communion." And he saw that the woman officer that was accompanying me, and he told her, he says, and he had his, you could read it on his face. He was so excited, and he says, "You know, I just got baptized last week." And so she said, "That's very nice. I'm glad to hear that." So he was very excited, and I transferred him into a class of non-RCIA, those that are furthering their faith, and he was doing very well. Then the COVID happened, and I couldn't see him, but he's out on parole now. He's finished with the prison, so I wish him well.
Thank you, Larry, for sharing Ricky's story with us. At this time, I believe the panel will take questions or comments. If anyone has sent any comments or questions through the chat feature on the Zoom.
Yeah, it seems like there's a few questions. The first one is, do we have Spanish versions of these materials? And so a number of the materials that we highlighted are both in English and Spanish. Certainly the Dismas study guides are in English and in Spanish available. Some of the resources that I mentioned in terms of the liturgical readings are also available in English and Spanish. The Word Among Us has La Palabra Entre Nosotros version, special inmate edition as well. The Jesuit Restorative Justice Initiative, the weekly liturgy guides are published in both English and in Spanish as well. And the Ligori publications, the Journey of Faith, Jornada de Fe, the RCIA packets, again, those are both in English and in Spanish and available for different age levels. So those are the resources that do come in both English and in Spanish. That was one question. The other question is, for youth in detention, what resources would be available? You know, the Dismas ministry, the study guides, some may be depending upon for youth, but I have found that some of the Ligori, the Journey of Faith resource has been a little bit easier for young people to access. And so I've used that intermittently, both in English and in Spanish. So the Jornada de Fe, the Journey of Faith, would be something that's can be applicable to youth. I'd also highlight the Jesuit Restorative Justice Initiative, those liturgy guides. I make those available to the youth, and when I've used them also in the county jail, they are very, they really connect. Especially being able to read witnesses, examples of faith from someone who is incarcerated or has been, and is able to help the youth be able to connect to their own life. And so I would encourage that as a regular use for someone who is, you know, preparing for sacraments, as being kind of their weekly kind of guide in breaking open the word and reflecting on their own lives about it. I think that the thing to highlight about those liturgy guides is that if we're really kind of reflecting on the word, all the topics that we look at in terms of our Catholic faith and tradition surface out of there. So I think that's just something kind of to keep in mind there. There was a question about comparing religion, something that Larry, that you mentioned. And so the question is if there's provide resource material to compare religions. It's a common question in juvenile ministry. Do you have any specific resources on this to share?
I did not find any resources that I could use that were, a structured program. I just used a variety of things that I could get that would compare. I found one was, I don't even remember the name of the book, compared the spirituality of Christian and Muslim, and found that, mysticism in Islam followed, there was a parallel with Christian mysticism, and so that was helpful. They enjoyed that, and any other things that I can find on the book, statements from the popes, or our last several popes have been very open to the idea of working closer with Islamic people and Islamic religion. So things like that, but nothing specific that I can have been able to find.
Let's see, other questions.
What else is there?
Dismas has had 2 conferences in the past. I was wondering if there were any plans to do this again.
We are not planning to host another conference, but the coalition will be at some point in the future. Obviously, things have been disrupted because of COVID-19, but hopefully in 2021, the coalition and other partners will be coming together to host some kind of conference. We're not sure what that's going to look like yet, but it's in development.
Yeah, thank you, Tyler. Let me just jump in there for a moment and reinforce that. We were hoping to have something this year, but because of COVID, we've had to put everything off. But we are thinking of a national conference. It would be similar to the one that Dismas had, except that in this case, we're going to also strive to have it be more of a hybrid, where we will have some in-person participation, but also have it be Zoom and virtual presentations, so that people don't have to travel as much as they used to.
So just other questions and comments. Joan also shared, I found that some women were quite receptive to the Catholic social teaching materials, so rather than the other materials. And again, I think that goes to those comments I made, that some of this material, it's a matter of kind of listening for what are the needs and what kind of matches up. And so having kind of a substantial toolbox, but being able to kind of be flexible with what connects to our communities. Yes, there are a lot of different resources available from other publishers or faith formation materials at discounts or free. And so that's great. Ascension Press, Arsena Visitor, that's right, Word on Fire does. So I think, and when a publisher doesn't, I know there's some that maybe, that may or may not, again, thinking about connecting our, the local church, parish communities to be able to sponsor or donate. There's many people that sometimes want to know, how can I get involved in detention ministry? And it's not necessarily always being inside a facility. There's a lot of ways in which a community can support the efforts of faith formation, like sponsoring a subscription to something or buying resources. So I think something to keep in mind, or supporting organizations that do provide for free. The Liguori Journey of Faith, that is not through Dismas, that is through Liguori Publications. So liguori.org is where the Journey of Faith study guides are found. Catholic calendar, one of the things that the guys like is a Catholic calendar. I agree. Let's see, do you know of a resource? Do you know a resource of this Washington State DOC policy is that the items must be sent directly to the facility and it cannot be brought in by me, even if it is inspected at the checkpoint. That's a good question. I know that LTP, Liturgical Training Publications, publishes a calendar that has kind of the circle with all the little seasons and dates, and then explanation of the liturgical year and the seasons. Where I was able to bring one in, I would buy a packet and I would distribute those. And I agree, those were always there was a lot of curiosity, and always, kind of looking that as a calendar, a very good resource, catechetical resource. I'm not familiar how you would be able to send one in individually, but if there's anybody else on the webinar who might have an idea of how that could be done, that would certainly be helpful to know.
I jump in there on the calendar issue. I find that's something that you think people doing time would not want to be reminded of it, but they love calendars, especially calendars that are big enough, like a wall calendar, to write dates and things on. A lot of the guys that I worked with at San Quentin would use it also kind of as a daily diary as well. Every year I would order about 1,000 calendars from a company in Colorado, and I can't remember the name of them offhand, but they had various kinds of calendars, and some of them were religious themes, some of them were secular themes. They had nice pictures, especially for the guys who were in lockup 23 hours a day. To see beaches and beautiful scenery, it was important. But that was about $1,000 investment a year, and that goes back to what Lulu was saying. That would be a great thing for a parish to sponsor, because I cannot emphasize how important calendars are for prisoners, and the ones that have the Catholic holidays are important too, and it's good to have those. You have to be careful that they're not spiral bound. They have to be usually stapled, and sometimes not even stapled. Find out what your local requirements are. Another resource that didn't get mentioned, but one that I have found very helpful over the years, is the Living Faith booklets. They're basically a Catholic version of the daily breads they're also really nice. Evangelical daily devotional prayers, but Living Faith is specific for Catholics. It has the daily readings, and they also have this thing called Creative Communications for the Parish, and they have a lot of nice seasonal things that you can get for free as a chaplain. I don't off the top of my head, I don't have their contact information, but if you go online and Google Living Faith Foundation, I believe their website is livingfaith.org. And that will direct you to their prison ministry resources.
We are seeing someone else offered a suggestion, Matthew Kelly's Decision Point. He says has served him well in RCIA in both men and women's institutions. So there's another resource for everyone.
And then Tyler, someone's asked, does Dismas Ministry give test copies of its materials that can be looked at before purchase?
That's never been asked before, at least not to me, but yes, we can furnish that for someone if they so need to see that. I think what we want to emphasize here too is, I'll just take a break for a second to say that we want everyone to keep sharing resources. We've given some examples today of things that work well with different populations in prisons, but we also encourage the input from all of you out there, and we're going to put all this together in a list and provide it to everyone so the resources can be shared. I know somewhere, I don't see it right in front of me, but someone also had said that the USCCB on their website, there's a resource there as well, a resource training guide for RCIA that might be helpful to people to take a look at. Scrolling through here.
And of course, all of these resources will be posted on our CPMC website as well, because that's kind of the whole idea of the CPMC, was to be a clearinghouse for the various kinds of resources that are out there.
And someone's also asked about an ecumenical Bible study. I know that the Dismas study guide is, the whole idea is to provide Catholic resources, but this may be kind of in another addressed, or maybe it's been covered in another situation for an ecumenical Bible study.
I think one of the things over the years I found is that there's a little bit of suspicion sometimes that people think that we're trying to coerce them into becoming Catholic, but that really depends on the chaplain, and hopefully we're not being coercive, but rather inviting people. it's really important that we provide Catholic Bibles with the deuterocanonical texts. A lot of prisoners really want them. They're curious about them. They've been told that these are these mysterious books that Catholics somehow added to the Bible. And so it's a great opportunity to explain that that's not true, and that where they come from. And they make for some great reads. I mean, Tobit's a great book. And so you can also, the American Bible Society has been really generous in providing Catholic Good News Version Bibles with the deuterocanonical texts, or AKA Apocrypha, as Protestants call them. They're also working on a large print version of a Good News Bible, which is another thing to keep in mind. A lot of prisoners don't have access to good vision care. They may not have glasses that are good. They're in dark cells, and they can't read tiny little print. So when you do give material out, be careful that it's large print. And that's one of the nice things about Dismas, that it's a nice large font in the materials.
I have one comment here from someone who says it's a problem that they're often unable to bring materials in to the people that they're ministering to. And so in a couple comments here, I've seen the suggestion has been made that when and if they need to send them directly to the chaplain, that might help facilitate distribution of those materials once they're there through the chaplaincy office.
Yes, as a rule, you should always go through the institutional chaplains because of the security issues. And the chaplains then, that's their job, is to make sure that to facilitate getting things in and out. You just don't ever bring anything in on your own. That's kind of a bottom line rule for prison ministry. I just want, before we're running a little close to our end time, so I wanted to just mention that our next Catholic Prison Ministry Coalition webinar is going to be on Tuesday, October 13th, same time, 10 a.m. Pacific time. And the topic is basically Catholic social teaching and how does the Respect Life movement affect prisoners, detainees, and the criminal justice system. October being Respect Life Month, it's an important time for us to also bring in the other issues around that are life issues, especially issues around the death penalty, for example. But prison incarceration itself, I believe, is a life issue. And our speakers that day will be Bishop Brendan Cahill, who is the Bishop of the Diocese of Victoria, Texas, and my friend and colleague, Dr. Catherine Geddix Soltis from Villanova University. I knew her from Boston College, and both she and Bishop Brendan Cahill will speak on the subject. So again, that's October 13th at 10 a.m. Pacific time, West Coast time, and that's a Tuesday. And we'll have the links sent out to you. It'll be on our website. There's also a request, if you would check in the chat box before you sign off today. And please go to the link for the survey. We would like to get some feedback on today's webinar and your ideas for future webinar planning as well. So if you have time, please go to the survey. We'll also have the survey link posted on the CPMC website so you can get to it later if you can't do it right away. But I think that's about it for time. Any last comments from our panelists before we sign off?
Thank you for all of you for being here today. We're happy to present on this topic, and keep sharing your resource ideas. We'll be posting that soon.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all for being here and for the great work you do. And I just, especially Tyler, I'm so grateful for everything that Dismas does, because over the years, I've found the materials to have been extraordinarily helpful in working with prisoners. So thank you again, and thank you for our participants. And God bless you all. We'll see you in October, God willing.